This is obviously an older article from 1974, and the details of it talks about voice-to-skull technology. You can see the headline, Microwave Voice-to-Skull Success Announced 1974, American Psychologist, Journal of the American Psychologists Association, Volume 30. And here it talks about March 75, 1975, number 3. And basically, it starts off by radiating themselves with the voice-modulated microwaves. Sharp and Grove were readily able to hear, identify, and distinguish among 9 words. These articles, there was many of these printed back in the 70s. If you go back to the 60s as well, but the 70s especially, and mind control experiments had been running rampant since the early 50s. And there were so many people who were experimenting on it. It's mind-blowing. There's still people who are coming out of the woodwork explaining how they were experimented on. And back in the 70s, there was a congressional hearing, and the Central Intelligence Agency came out and explained that these types of things were happening and that they had experimented on people. And it was behavioral modification, everything from drugging people without their knowledge to using technology such as this, voice-to-skull technology, playing with people's minds. Anything that could get the accomplishment that they wanted out of their research projects, their experimentation. So you had a lot of people running around who had been traumatized and who had been experimented on and had no idea. Many of these people committed suicide. Many of these people went on to commit violent acts. Many of these people lost their minds. Who knows what happened to them? But it's a good thing that this information was able to come out. In today's world, it's strange. We're in 2018, and for some reason, the general public just does not have the education that these types of programs existed. They're not familiar with reading about them and learning about them. So when they hear things like voice to skull, or they hear things like behavior modification, they're thinking of science fiction shows on television. They're not thinking about the psychologists, the newspaper articles, the congressional hearings, the testimony of the subjects. They haven't had that education. So therefore, to them, it sounds more like comical and funny because when they were growing up, nobody came and presented it to them as it really was. No one came and sat down and gave them the knowledge and shared it with them. And so they view this type of thing as being like something on Geraldo or something, or Oprah. You got to think when people were growing up, that's how they seen this type of stuff. They've never been really. So I don't spend too much time on like MK Ultra and mind control. I have people who have gone through these programs contact me for help. A lot of people call me to talk to me about it. My subject is gang stalking, but I will share some links for people so people can have access to read for themselves and study for themselves and educate for themselves on what the MK Ultra projects were. And Voice to Skull was definitely a part of it. Psychotronic weapons, majorly a part of it. And these were tested in neighborhoods on people, like regular neighborhoods. They were tested on. This stuff was tested on people that frequented at bars and stuff. I mean, this wasn't always done in laboratory settings. This stuff was done on the streets. So I'm gonna put some links up for people so they can read, they can study, they can get the education they want on the subject if that's what they want. And so if anybody comes to you and asks you about voice to skull technology, or ask you where you're coming from when they're questioning, you can say, well, listen, look at this newspaper article from back in the 70s. Look at this doctor. Look at this congressional hearing. Look at this. You can have some reference for them to pull out. So it's not just you saying you watched a YouTube video. These are things you can go back in a chronological order and begin to explain to people. And all right.